What was the outcome of today's meeting?
Well, the outcome of today was just almost like a reiteration of the stance from 2 weeks ago, from 4 weeks ago, saying that there is a commitment and a determination to finish the season, but without any detail as to how they're going to do it. We kind of expected a bit of a blueprint or a roadmap towards dates and return to training, return to action, but didn't come today because, as the last time they spoke, they put it back on the government, saying that until the government say where and when you can start playing and testing, we can't set any dates. So it's up to the government now. It's up to the government to say, this is what you can do, this is how it will be safe, and this is how you can test. And that is what we're all waiting for.
So going forward, Danny, it looks like there'll be something maybe towards the end of next week from the government, and then potentially we could get something from the Premier League after that, even if it is only a week away from now.
Yeah, there needs to be something said. I think the problem that everybody's having at the moment is that there's no date. There's no official date when everything's going to recommence, whether it be going back to training, whether it be when the games restart. And I just think we have to set a date. And if we're not able to get to that date and resume playing football, then we have to finish this season because, you know, we all love the Premier League. We know how important it is. But the leagues below, they're really going to suffer because the less they're going without football, it becomes a big problem because the majority of their turnover is from supporters coming through the door. So, you know, I would be looking and saying, right, if we can't start by this point, we then don't have relegation. There's no relegation from the Premier League, and the money that is then saved can then be filtered down to teams that they absolutely need, else they're going to go to the wall.
Mark, if there's been one criticism levelled at the Premier League over the years, they're pretty much chief executives of the self-preservation. So it's all about them and nothing else. Would you expect them to become more involved and interested in discussions with the Championship, League One and League Two, the Football League, as to how that potential, as Danny's talking about, relegation if it doesn't happen, promotion if it does happen? Did the Premier League need to do more to involve themselves with not the Premier League?
They do need to do more, but I think whether they do it is debatable. I think they've got to get their own house in order first. They've got a lot of big issues to address. And I agree with Danny that it's coming to the point now where we need to say there has to be a cut-off point because they've done it in France, they've done it in Holland. In France, they had average points per game, which settled the league table. You know, me and Daniel know we're speaking to people a lot in the game and we're hearing lots of things, and there are so many obstacles emerging day after day in terms of which will stop football coming back. You know, I'm hearing things like now having to disinfect footballs before a game, and you know, say what happens if a player gets a bloodied nose or he cuts a knee? There's blood on the pitch, on the ball. These would normally be insignificant issues, but now with this disease spreading, it's impossible to say that a game will be safe. And ultimately, a football club has a duty of care to its employees, its footballers, to make sure they play and work in a safe environment. And right now, there's no such thing as a safe environment when you're in physical contact with somebody.
One thing that's been pretty constant throughout, when everybody, including you, me, and everyone else, have made predictions with regards to this coronavirus and what comes next, we've all been wrong. So let's make more predictions regarding the Premier League. How do we resolve this? We've got two outstanding fixtures, Danny Higginbotham. What do we do with regards to relegation? Give us the magic wand that will resolve everything.
I think it's safe to say that there's no solution that's going to please everybody. You know, this is extreme circumstances. I would be looking to set a date in the very near future. And if we're not able to start then what I would be saying is possibly, because there are a couple of teams that have games in hand, Sheffield United, if they were to win their game in hand, all of a sudden they go into fifth. And that's going to affect them as in terms of where they finish at the end of the season. Likewise with Aston Villa, they have a game in hand. If they win that, they then get out of the bottom three. So that would be the only thing that I would be looking at the moment. You know, we've heard about teams possibly going and playing in a neutral venue and then the game starting again. But the one thing that I don't hear mentioned often enough, what are the players' thoughts on this? How are the players going to be? Are they going to be comfortable leaving their family surroundings where they've been with their wife, with their children, probably doing the shopping for their parents as well, who may be elderly, and then all of a sudden putting themselves at risk and then having to come back home? So it's a difficult one, but I would just be looking at the two games that need to be played to put everybody on 29, and then there's a fairer outcome from them, and then we move forward.
I want to get your reaction, both of your reaction to this solitary question. I'm going to start with Mark here. Can we have promotion but not relegation in England?
I think we can. I think, you know, it is a fair way to reward achievement. I think you have to reward achievement. Sometimes you obviously have to punish failure, but on this occasion, the legal ramifications of relegating teams when there's still several games to play, I just think are impossible to kind of contemplate. But equally, if you promote Leeds and West Brom from the Championship, I think that each team has 9 games to play. So Fulham in third place was 6 points behind West Brom. So, well, hang on, we have 9 games left to play. We can catch West Brom or Leeds. So, I mean, where do you draw the line? But you have to draw it somewhere. And I think average points per game would be the way. And it's, I do think that you have to reward achievement at some point. But how you do it, I don't know. Coventry in League One, again, they've got a big lead. Punish them for what's out of their hands. It's so tough.
Danny?
Yeah, it is. It's a tough one. But I just think that what we do, the 4 major leagues, and you can even take it into semi-professional, non-league football, the teams that are in the automatic positions at the moment, they get promoted. There is no relegation. We then have seasons with obviously overinflated leagues, but we have more relegation. And the reason I say that is because if you look at a team like Huddersfield, they got relegated from the Premier League last season. They still made £90 million. So therefore, the teams that would ordinarily be relegated from the Premier League, what they do, they don't get the full amount for being in the Premier League next season. They would get half of it, half of what they wouldn't normally have. And then the rest of the money can then be filtered down, because the longer this is going on without an answer, the longer some of the great clubs who are such a big identity in a community, they're going to disappear. And one thing that England's been so well known for is the pyramid. The pyramid within football, the grassroots. So many fantastic players have matured and gone on to the Premier League from there, gone on to get international recognition with England. And I think that's why I would do the point where there's no relegation.
Finally, Danny said it earlier, you can satisfy some of the people some of the time, but you're never going to satisfy all the people all the time. I'm going to give you a kind of a solution. And I want you, if you, first of all, Mark, then Danny, if you can tell me how it would work and then why it wouldn't work. We seem to be desperate for this season to finish so that next season can start. Forget about next season. You have the World Cup in 2022 in Qatar in November. Is there a potential to just allow the rest of this year, I know it'll be financially difficult, but use the rest of 2020 to sort out season 19-20, then have your January through November calendar season for 2021 as a way of kind of looking ahead to the World Cup in 2022, where you might have to be doing something similar. Would that work or would it not work? First, Mark, then Danny, you can respond.
I think it could work. I do think it could take another 6 months for this season to find itself resolved. I think it's naive to think it'll be done in August to September. Obviously, we've got the Euros next summer, which have been put back, so that might get in the way. But I do think a calendar season next year would help align the fixture list until 2022. But Bradford City in League 2 have said today that they can't sell season tickets for next season because they don't think they'll be allowing fans in until 2021. That's January. That is 6, 7, 8 months away. I think people now have to start accepting the fact that we may not see football of any fashion until January or February. That's a scary thought, but it might be true.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. When you look and say, right, okay, get the season finished by the end of this year. But the problem you're going to have, and it becomes a huge problem, what happens to players' contracts? What happens to the transfer window? If you've got a player that's out of contract, is he going to be happy? Don't get me wrong, there'll be 2 types of players. There'll be players that are going to move on a free because they couldn't agree a deal with their current club and have maybe got themselves fixed up with another club where they're going to be financially in a better position. They're going to a better club. So they're going to be despondent about that. Whereas there will be players that are coming to the end of the contract that the clubs don't want them, but they're going to have their contract extended for a certain amount of time. So I think that will be one of many problems that we will foresee, in particular if we do what you're suggesting, which is a good idea. But then when we strip back the layers, I just think it brings up a whole host of problems once again.
Very hard to have one ideal solution right now. Hopefully this time next week we will have more news from the Premier League. If the government has made a decision, let's reconvene then and discuss further. Thank you, boys.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.